Good evening and welcome. Let's take a look at the top story that we are tracking for you. Iran's hardliner Ebrahim Raisi has emerged as the winner of the presidency, and as the Iranian judge and cleric takes office in August, let's take a look at what Raisi will bring to the table. Raisi's carefully orchestrated election can be said to have triggered a new political system in Iran. The 60-year-old cleric is a close ally of the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and for Khamenei, who is propelling the Islamic Revolution and its ideals in Iran, this is a guised win. Now, according to Khamenei, an Islamic government would work to complete the Islamization of Iranian society. And with Raisi at the helm, Khamenei is well on his way to fill most politically relevant posts in the country with hardliner members. Talking about foreign policy, ultimate power in Iran lies with the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Anti-Americanism is at the core of the Iranian regime, and this current foreign strategy is likely to be continued. The Iranian government doesn't completely exert control on foreign policy. Again, Iran's supreme leader wields influence over diplomacy as well. And for Khamenei to achieve the long-term goals of making Iran an Islamic republic, focus will be on increasing Iran's influence over the region and exporting the Islamic Revolution to other countries. Some Arab countries have already pointed out that Raisi's election might make improving Gulf ties a tougher challenge, as they see Iran tilting to a more radical, more conservative position. Iran is now seeking to relieve itself of the sanctions imposed by the United States. Raisi, who is a relentless critic of the West, voiced support for the continuing nuclear negotiations with the U.S. During the presidential debate, Raisi explicitly reaffirmed Iran's commitment to implementing the JCPOA. He had said, and I quote, "We are committed to the JCPOA, but the JCPOA needs a strong government to implement it." Now, Iran's next president has been accused by critics of human rights abuses, which stretch back decades. Rights groups say that he was one of the 4 judges who oversaw the executions of thousands of political prisoners in 1988. Amnesty International has put the number of those executed at around 5,000. The United States imposed sanctions on Raisi in 2019 for human rights violations, including the 1980s executions and his part in the suppression of unrest in 2009. Now, let's understand what Raisi's presidency will mean for India. When America walked out of the nuclear deal, it swept its allies into a confrontation with Iran. India was one of them. It chose to side with the United States and stop buying oil from Iran. But the pandemic has ushered in a new era of relations. India helped deliver PPE kits and COVID relief to Iran. Iran also received a shipment of 150,000 doses of Covaxin, which is India's indigenous jab. With the new regime stepping in and hardliners set to rule the country, all India can hope for now is growing relations with Tehran. Lifting Iran's economy back from a free fall is another daunting challenge that Raisi is about to face. The pain of Donald Trump's ramped-up sanctions sparked a currency collapse and galloping inflation. During his campaign, Raisi wooed lower-income Iranians by promising to ease unemployment. Raisi presidency will strengthen Khamenei's hand at home, who himself served 2 terms as the president before becoming Iran's supreme leader. The win has also brightened Raisi's chances of one day succeeding Khamenei at the pinnacle of power, while rights activists fear it could usher in more repression. Now, for more on this, Indian director in India, Sri Lanka Foundation, and former ambassador to Myanmar, G. Practice Sati, is joining us live. Thank you for your time this evening. Now, the Indian Prime Minister has congratulated Raisi on his election victory and has said that he hopes that this will further strengthen the ties between India and Iran. How will Raisi's election influence the India-Iran ties?
Well, let's look at it this way. It's really historic. I mean, we've been for centuries connected with Iran in civilizational terms. And even with the Shah of Iran, we had a good relationship. But with the revolutionary government, we have run into problems because of global sanctions. because we are one of Iran's major buyers of oil, and that market closed. And so did the market about some of the projects we were undertaking in Iran. Now, we are looking forward to this 14-nation effort with Iran in the UN, coming to a logical and good conclusion, and the sanctions ending. Within the region, we had a very close cooperation with Iran over the years in Afghanistan. In fact, when the Taliban were ruling there, I think the main opposition from the tribes like the Gilgit, Pakistan, and Israel were and really within Iran. I'm talking of the Tajiks, the Hazaras, all who were at the end receiving end of Taliban rule, had joined together with Iran, and India supported them. So we have worked very closely with Iran on Afghanistan. The main project we've done there is the Chabahar port constructed by us, which is now to be connected by train to take all our goods from Iran after it lands in the Chabahar port to Afghanistan. So Iran acts as a very important transit point for us. So we are looking forward to resuming this. There are, of course, several issues involved because we have excellent relations with Israel. We have excellent relations with many of the Arab countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, with whom, unfortunately, relations with Iran are not really friendly. But we've learned to segregate these things. And therefore, the end of these sanctions is going to involve the resumption of oil trade, which runs into billions of dollars. We are one of the largest importers of oil in the world. And then other than that, we're looking forward to some more projects in Iran. And we'll have to see how the situation in Afghanistan plays out. Circumstances are very different now. But yes, we will be in touch with them. We have been in touch with them. And the relationship will grow. In fact, Ayatollah Khamenei,
Ambassador,
the leader of the revolution,
I do want... Ambassador, sorry to interrupt you there. I do want to go a little bit deeper into this. The recent decision by Iran, obviously, to halt that railway line project at Chabahar that you mentioned, at Chabahar port. Now, of course, this caused concerns in New Delhi. Do you think that there could be a reset in that regard now with the new regime?
Absolutely. I think the Chabahar port, there was some... The port has been built. It is the railway line which they are to build. I'm sure we'll be able to persuade them because it is going to be a very sort of commercially viable proposition for them. Because it's not just India. A large number of countries who want to send goods and services to Afghanistan will use this port. So, yeah, I think, yes, that arose out of construction issues they had of the rail line in communication.
Right now, Israel has called the new President Raisi the butcher of Tehran. His hardline politics also make him a potential successor to Iran's supreme leader, of course, Khamenei. How will this election impact the geopolitics in the region?
Within the region, I think what has happened is the number of Arab countries recognizing Israel is expanding. It's a question of time before maybe Saudi Arabia and others do. The rejectionists, as they were, are led by the Iranians. There is Syria and a few other countries who go along with them. And also in Yemen, the Iranians are supporting rebels who are taking on the Saudis. But as I said again, we keep out of that. That's between the Saudis and the Iranians. We don't get involved. And we hope it will be soon sorted out. Because I think the Iranians will have to learn to live with people who have other priorities. And the others, in turn, I suppose, will have to understand how the Iranians function. They are, I can assure you, very difficult people to negotiate with. In my days in the service, I have negotiated projects with them. It takes very hard. They're hard bargains.
Right. Now, many, including the US, have branded Raisi as an extremist who is committed to advancing Iran's nuclear program. How will Raisi's policies impact Iran's nuclear ambitions, as well as the adherence to the nuclear deal?
My own feeling is that the 14-nation talks now proceeding by Iran on the one side, the European Union, by the US and others. I think, unlike President Trump, who was rather rash in the sort of sanctions he placed, President Biden takes a more realistic and a holistic view of relations with Iran. That will, I think, so normal relations which have made life difficult not only for us, but also for America's European allies, will be eased. Because Iran is a stabilizing factor in world oil prices. I think apart from the Russians, they are one of the largest producers of oil in the world. And we have been long-time customers. They also are interested in setting up refining facilities for their own oil for export eastwards from India. That we were discussing, but we're discussing that with the Saudis and others also. But energy is, for us, the most important source of cooperation, trade, investment in the Gulf, whether it is Iran or Saudi Arabia. And incidentally, we also keep good relations with Israel. And we ensure that nobody butts into our relations with third countries. I'm glad South Africa has a similar voice.
Ambassador, thank you for your valuable insights there. Ambassador Pratisati joining us live.
WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.